The Vansha and Charita. Freed from the Sutta tradition, the Vansha form developed a vast body of quasi-historical literature. The Buddhist Rajavansha, Deepavansha and Mahavansha, the Jaina Harivansha, the Hindu Raghuvansha, Sasivansha, the Nipavali of Shemandra and Parthivavali of Heliraja and the Rajatarangini of Kalhana are only some of the Vansha genre of a vast body of semi-historical literature. Historical Kavya or Charita or ornate biographies. In the early medieval period, another kind of historical narrative, the Charita, a historical epic or ornate biography, came to be developed in the milieu of the royal courts. Ashwaghosa's Buddha Charita may be cited as perhaps the first known example of the Charita kind. The suttas and such others charged with keeping of the historical tradition were replaced by salaried court poets who wrote royal biographies. Historiography came to be based on court organization, having a real unity between prince, poet, courtier and chroniclers. It became an organ for princely propaganda and an instrument for the propagation of new social values of chivalry and heroism and loyalty. The historical charita or kavya is a romance woven around a strong historical kernel. Some of the most famous specimen of this kind is Harsa Charita, the Gaudavaha, the Vikramakanda Deva Charita, Navashanskara Charita, Kumarapala Charita, Prithviraja Vijaya, Somapala Vilasa and Ramacharita. Banabhatta Harsa Charita. The first Indian work which may be regarded as historical in Harsa Charita Banabhatta, an incomplete biography of Harsavardhana of Thaneswar in Kannauj, written in the first quarter of the 7th century. It is in the model of romance based on a historical kernel. Bana was born in the village of Pirtikuta on the river Son. The mother, Rajadevi, died while Bana was still a child, and his father, Chitrabhanu, also died when he was hardly 14. Bana then led a difficult life summoned by Harsa. Bana was at first reluctant to attend court but obeyed the summon. Harsa received him rather coldly but soon developed the highest degree of confidence in poet and honored him. The content in the Bana Harsa Charita. The Harsa Charita is written as a story related by Bana to his kinsman. The 8th chapter of the work, running into 265 pages in its English translation, brings us only to first year of Harsa's reign. The first chapter deals with the family of the author. The second tells us of his introduction to Harsa, while the thirds go to describe Thaneswar. The next 5 chapters take us through Harsa's ancestry, his sister Rajasri's marriage to Grahavarman Mukharis of Kannauj, the death of his father Prabhakaravardhana, the murder of Grahavarman, and the imprisonment of Rajasri by the king of Malwa, his brother Rajyavardhana's expedition against the wrongdoer and his easy success, Rajyavardhana's treacherous assassination by King Sasanka of Gowda, Rajasri's escape and fight to the Vindhya, her rescue by Harsa, and his return to the imperial camp on the Ganges. At this point, the work abruptly ends, for Bana was not writing history in our sense of term. B.S. Pathak convincingly argued that the Harsa Charita was not a fragmentary work but a complete and finished product of art, that Bana never intended to write further than the meeting of Harsa with Rajasri, and that he had all along been working to achieve this end. Bana Akshayika means narrative is complete with the recovery of Rajasri, the royal glory. Bana conclude, and there, when I was relating to my friend the story which ends with the recovery of Rajasri, the sun also crossed the sky. Quote ended. The nature of Harsa Charita. The Harsa Charita is not history proper, which was a genre unknown to its author. It is a historical prose romance belonging rather to the Kavya or quote epic category of Sanskrit literature. There is a little narrative, that essence of history and prose, its place being taken by flattery and exaggeration and long rhetorical description, sometimes running into 2 or more pages. The work does not seem to be based on any other source than the facts supplied by reporters at the court and the information current among the people. Some description indeed look like eyewitness account. For the rest, Bana seems to have relied on his own knowledge and imagination. He seems to have invented speeches and even situations for his main character. But as in Thucydides, we may claim for Bana that each such oration may have represented the substances of an address actually given. Bana aimed not at recording events as they happen, but at showing a particular objective being attained by his hero, such as redeeming family honor and recovering Rajasri in both the meaning of the word, his sister as well as royal glory. This master of Sanskrit prose is eloquent of expression, but the language is bombastic, the style florid and often verbose, and the treatment is romantic. Bana's pages abound with religious and mythological allusion. The parade of puns or double meaning in the words and veiled allusion in the sentence make the Harsacharita difficult reading even as literature. Let alone its history, the supernatural and in concomitants, superstition, omens, dire, portents, dream, throbbing of the eye, and howls of the jackals find a place in Bana pages much as they do in Indian life. Manifest impossibility mar the credibility of the book. All at once the tree in the park put forth untimely flower, as though to say farewell. Vehemently wept the statues in the halls, beating their breast with strokes of agitated palm. The warriors, as though their head had vanished in the fear of the near clutching of their hair, beheld themselves headless in the mirror. Quote ended. Now the merits of the Harsacharita. Yet the Harsacharita, not intended as a history in the usual sense of the word, is securely based on historical fact. This fact can be easily separated from the literary embellishment that cover them and often confirmed by contemporary inscription and other sources. They attested to Bana devotion to the truth. Cowell and Thomas, the English translator of Harsacharita, has observed the Bana work, quoted, is as much based on real event as Scott's Quentin Durward or Waverley. Unquote. Again, in casual reference of a peripheral nature, Bana provides other historical information or confirms such information derived from other sources. Thus, Skandagupta commanded of the elephant corp in warning Harsha against disaster due to mistaken thirst and reluctant carelessness refers to the tragic end of Kakavarna, the son of Sisunaga, who had a dagger thrust into his throat. The assassination of Brihadratha Maurya by Pushyamitra Sunga, the murder of Devabhuti, the last of the Sunga, by the daughter of his slave woman at the instances of his minister Vasudeva Kanva, and to the murder of Ibidinius Sakarudra Simha III, Western Kshatrapa by Chandragupta II. Then, the introductory verses of Harsacharitas are of great value of literary chronology, as they mention a number of works like Vasavadatta and Brihatkatha, and authors like Vyasa, Hala, Harichandra, Prabharasena, Bhasa and Kalidasa, thus fixing their lower chronology limit. This certainty of date had brought an additional value of Harsacharita, particularly as a landmark in literary history. The intense realism of Bana's pictures of contemporary life, the result of first-hand knowledge, careful observation, and deep human sympathy, is not matched by anything similar in Indian literature. Bana describes men and women of all kinds and classes, and speak of blogging rice and wheat crop, sugarcane enclosure of the Persian wheel or cut corn heaps ready for the threshing floors, singing herdsmen mounted on buffaloes gay, with the tinkles of the bell bound to their neck, roaming herd of cow, troops of camel, and flock of sheep under the guardianship of camel boys. Travellers, blissfully sleeping after the drinking the juice of fresh fruit, and of lovely groves where wood rangers taste the coconut juice. Not only the picturesque but also the pathetic catches his eye. Touching are the senses of Prabhakara Vardhana's death and that of his queen's self-immolation in water. It is not always the eulogy of the courtier, but censure too of his proud master that we read in Bana page. Listen to the riot giving vent to the indignation and the damage caused to their crop by Harsa's troop. Other despondent at the plunder of their ripe grain had come forth wive and all to bemoan their estates, and to the imminent risk of their life, grieved disseminating fear, and began to censure their sovereign, crying, "Where the king? What right has he to be king? What is a king?" One might recall Prabhakara Vardhana's deathbed advice to the young Harsa, "In their people, not in their kin, are king rich in relative." Cowell and Thomas writes, Bana is not a mere rhetorician. His description of court and village life abound with masterly touches which hold up the mirror to the time. Not even the Pali Jatakas introduces us more directly into the very heart of the period or give us a more lifelike picture. The court, the camp, the quiet village, and the still more quiet monastery and retreat, whether the Brahmanas or the Buddhists, are all painted with singular power, and his narrative illustrates and supplements the Chinese traveller journal at every turn. Vakapati Raja, Padmagupta, Atula, Bilhana, Bhulo Kamala, and Jayanka. There are adulterated biographical work bearing many work of the Indian Kavya but few of true history. One such is Gaudavaha, written in the second quarter of the 8th century by Bakapti Raja to celebrate the defeat of a Gauda prince by the author's patron Yashovarman of Kannauj, who himself was defeated and killed not much later AD 740 by Lalitaditya of Kashmir. The poem is found left unfinished as the author might not have proceeded after his patron's death. Nor is this to be regarded as a loss to historiography, as the written part contains so little historical information that the reader does not even hear of the name of the defeated Gauda king. Of little importance for history, the Gaudavaha is of no great significance of literature either. Again, far from serious history is the Navashashanka Charita of Padmagupta, also called Parimala, written about AD 1005. The 18th canto of his work related a mythical theme but allude at the same time to the history of King Sindhuraja Navasahasanka of Malwa. As the method, so the treatment and the results are not historical. Atula. Next text is Atula Mushika Vansha. Atula's Mushika Vansha was introduced to the world of scholarship in 1960 by T. A. Gopinath Rao. The work, written in the Vansha tradition of historical Kavya, contained about 1000 shloka arranged in 15 cantos. Intended to be a dynastic history of Mushika king of Kollam, the northmost past principality of Kerala, the Mushika Vansha is one of the few epic of regional, nay parochial history. The author Atula may have been the court poet of Shrikantha, also known as Rajavarma, who is believed to have flourished toward the end of the 11th century and in beginning of the 12th. In Atula's hand, the history of the Mushikas king begins in mythology and proceeds without any sense of time and space, though incredible tales and marvels. The ancestor of the Musikas were Hehas, who Heyas, Hehas, who after their overthrow in their original home in the Vindhyas region, seems to have tackled southward and settled on the west coast of Mount Eli, near present-day Kannur, sometime before 6th century AD. The historical information contained in Atula's poem is squeezed into the last four cantos, the other being filled with mythological tales and accounts of King Nandana's pleasure-seeking life, which alone take up four cantos. Of about 11 and 118 king mentioned by Atula, 19 king from Kunchivarman is about the second half of the 19th century to Srikanta in the 12th century, ruled over Kollam for about 250 years. These 19 kings, whose history spanned over the last four cantos, are historical, a fact which is further proved by inscription in some of the temples of the locality recording the arrangement made by them for the perfection and preservation of temple property. The evidence of the poem and the inscriptional data from the region together given us a few scattered glimpses of the life of the period covered by the more historical of the Mushika kings, King Ballava, and a harbour dug and the city of Ballavapatnam built at the mouth of river Killa, thereby giving a great impetus to sea-borne trade. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism enjoyed the respect and patronage of the princes and the people. We see Pallava visiting amidst his campaign in Srimula Varsha, the famous center of Buddhistic learning and practice. King Satasoma is credited with founding the Chelur temple. Though there are only few references to the life of the ordinary people, Atula's description of well-dressed beautiful women eagerly glancing at the young king Ramaghata Mushika passing through the city with his army suggests a prosperous class of city dweller at their case. And of great significance to social history is the introduction from King Balidhara of the matrilineal system of succession in the royal family.